On today's episode of Locked On Wild, it is entirely possible Bill Guerin could have been one of the president of operations or general managers let go today had he not acquired Quinn Hughes earlier this season. Being a general manager is tough, and Bill Guerin's going to be judged by whatever move.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Foligno, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Seth Toupal. Welcome to Locked On Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Locked On Wild is your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we react to a big day in the Minnesota sports landscape with two general managers fired by Minnesota sports teams today. And we'll take a look at kind of how Bill Guerin has solidified his standing with obviously the big move to get Quinn Hughes. And whatever comes next will be how Bill Guerin is ultimately judged this season. We'll also talk about Daemon Hunt and David Jiricek, an impressive showing for them against the Calgary Flames. We'll take a look at the numbers to see how the young pairing is progressing. And the special teams came up big against the Flames. We'll talk about how the Wild power play has been doing since Quinn Hughes came into the fold. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member, bringing you access beyond the box score with interviews and exclusive deep dives, and host of the show since 2021. I don't usually do this, but today was kind of a groundbreaking day in Minnesota sports, and not in a good way. Two different high-ranking executives were shown the door by other Minnesota teams. It was Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah for the Minnesota Vikings, and it was Derek Falvey for the Minnesota Twins. It is rare enough to see that happen once in the Minnesota sports landscape, let alone have it happen twice in the same day. And I just thought it was interesting, you know, when we look at being a general manager or president of hockey operations in this case, or whatever the sport is operations, it is very much, what have you done for me lately? Sports are built on the foundation of what have you done for me lately? And you are only as good as your next trade, your next move. If we look at the last couple of seasons for the Minnesota Wild, there was mounting frustration for Bill Guerin to make a big swing after being pretty quiet over the last couple of years. Now, we know the reason as to why, mostly due to budget constraints and just wanting to not go crazy before the checkbook was opened. And so you get to this year, and the expectations are that this Wild team is going to make the playoffs. But a lot of people figured, since it was mostly the same team, that we were going to see mostly the same results. And then the team gets off to the awful start in October. And at that point, you're like, some seats better start to be getting hot. It might be time to look at having to make a shakeup. This roster is not good enough as currently constructed, which falls exclusively on the general manager. And Bill Guerin put himself back in fan favor with one swoop, one move to acquire Quinn Hughes from the Vancouver Canucks. And I think fans reacted as strongly as they did and excitedly as they did, because it's just so opposite what we know here in the state of Minnesota. It just runs so polar opposite. Teams hang on to assets here. Teams try to kind of make smaller moves to supplement the roster here. You don't take the big home run swings. You don't make those massive push the chips into the middle of the table type moves. But that's what you have to do in order to be effective at your job. I routinely, and everydayers know this, I routinely look at a couple of different general managers here in the NHL as kind of the gold standard as to what you need to be able to do in order to be a highly effective general manager in the league. And the two that I most commonly look at are Bill Zito of the Florida Panthers, and I will also throw Kelly McCrimmon in of the Vegas Golden Knights. And the two of them have a couple of different things in common as far as a general manager standpoint goes. Number one, they're never satisfied. We saw that last year with the Florida Panthers as they snagged Brad Marchand before the playoffs got started, and he made all the difference. He basically single-handedly took down the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 2. Pretty much single-handedly. And for Kelly McCrimmon, Rasmus Anderson acquired this year by the Golden Knights, despite the consensus that Vegas doesn't really have a great farm system. So what did they have that was available? Kelly McCrimmon finds a way. The best GMs are always looking ahead. The best GMs are never set in what is currently going on. And it feels like you almost have to have two different ideologies simultaneously. Number one is the pursuit of winning a Stanley Cup and, being able to quickly open and shut a contention window. And the other is being able to quickly pivot. You may not be in what you would consider a window of contention, and all of a sudden the right move comes along that can really make a difference. And you have to be willing to very quickly pivot your entire plan. You may have put together, as Bill Guerin allegedly did, you may have put together a 5-year plan. You may have a full 5-year plan put together, and then all of a sudden the right player comes available, and you have to scrap the plan entirely and say, okay, we're gonna improvise here. We're going to operate on the fly. And Bill Guerin did that. And look at what the Minnesota Wild have done since. You look back to what the Wild were able to do the moment the calendar flipped to November. And the Wild now, in that span, since November 1st, they have the most points in the league. Now, they have played 3 more games in Colorado, but still, they have the most points in the league. Their points percentage since November 1st is .733. And Bill Guerin, equal parts, didn't panic. But the moment the opportunity came about to make a game-breaking trade, he pounced. He snapped it up. He gobbled up Quinn Hughes to make sure that nobody else could get the player that he viewed as the piece that could change the fortunes of the Minnesota Wild going forward. And since the trade, the Minnesota Wild are 5th in the league in points. They're 13-5-5. They're averaging 3.7 goals per game. So you see the dividends paid off since Quinn Hughes has been brought in the fold. And you have a power play that's near 30%. You're scoring all these goals. Have you been giving up more goals? Sure, but you're scoring a ton more. You've changed the dynamic of your team substantially over the last handful of games. And the reason that the Wild are able to do that is because they weren't afraid to take the swing. Bill Guerin was not afraid to step up to the plate and say, we're going all in. And so just think about what our what our opinions were of Billy G before the season started, what our opinions were of Bill Guerin during the first month of the season, and what our opinions are now. Now we're excited. Now we are amped up, waiting to see what the next move that Bill Guerin pulls is going to be for this team. And Billy he's riding the wave as far as being a general manager go. And you look at, and not speak too much about it. I mean, if you want more reaction to what took place with the Twins and the Vikings today, I would wholeheartedly encourage you to check out Locked On Vikings and Locked On Twins for more comprehensive breakdowns. But I think the thing that defined the GM tenures for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Derek Falvey was either inaction or wrong action. And yeah, if you make a swing, it's entirely possible that Quinn Hughes could come in and it just didn't work, didn't fit. That was entirely possible. But there were two outcomes in this. Make the trade or don't. And Bill Guerin was way more comfortable making the trade because he felt like the Wild were a much better team with Quinn Hughes than they were without. And so all of the last couple of years, we have waited and waited patiently for something big to happen, and Bill Guerin delivers it on a platter. But, you know, life in sports, you're only as good as your next move. And we're going to have a different set of opinions if nothing gets done. We're going to have a different set of opinions if a trade gets made. What have you done for me lately? And so it's interesting to think about how differently this could have been had the Wild not acquired Quinn Hughes and we're still kind of floundering through the season. Could have been Bill Guerin today. You never know. It could have been Bill Guerin in some alternate universe today, but thankfully we didn't have to worry about that because he had the wherewithal to make the move, and we're reaping the benefits because of it. When we come back, I wanted to just look into a couple of things from the win over the Calgary Flames. In particular, some very strong play from the third pairing last night of Daemon Hunt and David Jiricek. So when we come back, we will discuss what we have seen from the third pairing on defense over the last several games. That's on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. It is last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday. One last kickoff. The final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you are right in the middle of the action with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Plus, make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you're looking to elevate your Locked On experience, the Everydayer Club is for you. Ad-free editions of Locked On Wild, plus an invite to the exclusive members-only Discord server. The link is in the show notes if you feel like enhancing your Locked On experience. Plus, the all-access tier gives you even more benefits, with exclusive content coming right to you. We are definitely ramping that up once the Olympic break hits. So stay tuned. And if you are looking to level up your Locked On experience, the all access and everyday tiers are just for you. So the Minnesota Wild beating the Calgary Flames last night. There were several people in the postcast who pointed out just some really solid play for both Daemon Hunt and David Jiricek on the third pairing. So I wanted to dive into that a little bit. We did give them some praise, but I don't feel like it was enough. And so I wanted to just kind of circle back and give both of those gentlemen a very, very well-deserved pat on the back. As far as Daemon Hunt goes, he, in that game against Calgary, he played 15 minutes. He had 1 assist, and he had, you look at the rest of the statistics that he brought to the table. He had 3 blocked shots, played in 18 shifts. He played on the penalty kill. And then David Jiricek, he played 12-38. He had a couple of shots on goal. He also played on the penalty kill. In that third pairing, they did exactly what you need a third pairing to do, which is to not hurt you. That is, honestly, I feel like I'm simplifying it a little too much, but if you can get a third pairing to not be an abject disaster, like if you can get them to just contribute and not be heard, like we say this in football all the time, an offensive linemen, when they are not being announced during the game, that means they're doing their job. And if we can just get a couple of guys on that third pairing that are just, reliable, steady, dependent, doesn't have to be anything flashy. It just needs to be consistent on a night in, night out basis. If you look at what Daemon Hunt has done, in particular over the last 5 games, he's got 2 points in that span. He has 7 shots on goal in that span, but he's also got 4 hits. He has 11 blocks in that span. And you look at what he has done so far this season. He has 5 points in 23 games. He's playing 12-ish minutes a night. He's got 32 blocks in 23 games. He's got 15 hits. And so you're getting a guy who steps in and does what is needed depending on the situation of the game. If you need somebody to block a shot, he can step in and do that. If you need somebody to bring a little physicality to the table, he can certainly do that as well. And through the 23 games that Hunt has played, he's already up to 0.6 as far as point shares go defensively, which if you look at the rest of the team, as far as the defensive point shares go, he is just ahead of his counterpart, David Jiricek. And, it's exactly what you'd expect for a third pairing. They're existing. They're playing well. They're playing comfortably, and they're not hurting you. Calgary could not exploit them last night. They have not been exploited hardly at all since they came together as a pairing. In fact, they've played 73 minutes together in 10 games this season. The goals against per 60 minutes is at 2.46, which amongst it's not at the elite level that the other D pairings are at. Jake Middleton and Jared Spurgeon is at 1.87 goals against per 60 minutes. Quinn Hughes and Brock Faber, they're at 3.26. But again, we're seeing them play high event hockey compared to slowing it down. But 2.46 goals against per 60 minutes is above average. That is an above average third pairing. 3 goals per game is average. And it's reliable, it's consistent, it's dependent. Would you like to see them get a few more minutes here and there? Absolutely. But the fact that they are just playing a third pairing role and they're not trying to do too much, that's the real win. That's the takeaway here. And David Jiricek as well. Ever since the game against Toronto, which was interesting because the Wild won that game 6-3, but both David Jiricek and Daemon Hunt were a -2 in that game. Ever since that game, both players have been either a 0 or a +1 as far as plus-minus goes. Win your matchup, win your battle, and make it so that the Wild don't have to worry about the third pairing. And I'll call it certainly good for the Wild. Now, Jiricek in his 24 games played this season, he's got 18 blocks, 7 hits. I think the Wild envision him being more of a Middleton, somebody who can throw their body around. I just don't know if that's his game. And the sooner that he is allowed to kind of step up and help offensively, he's got 40 shot attempts through the 24 games. That's more his forte. That's more his cup of tea. You're not going to turn him into a 200 hit a year guy. So let him help on offense. Let him step up in the play offensively. Pair him with somebody who's super responsible defensively, like Daemon Hunt. And you see the results. You see what is going on. And we will see them continue to play together until such time as Zach Bogosian and Jonas Brodin are ready to return. So until that point, just let them keep going out there and doing their thing, because they're certainly doing it well over the last handful of games. We will finish today's episode talking about the special teams, because the Minnesota Wild at one time owned the worst home penalty kill in the league. They're climbing. They're finally climbing the ladder. So we'll discuss. We'll take a look at some of the observations as far as the power play goes with Quinn Hughes in tow. That is all coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild right after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. Turns out there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you are not just working cleaner, you are creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and no more playing telephone in real life, where you're trying to relay messages 3 to 4 times to the rest of your team, which leads to the results getting a little skewed. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We'll have a double dip for you tomorrow. It's a late game against the Edmonton Oilers, so we'll have a chance we'll get you one in the morning that will preview the game against the Oilers. And as we get closer to throughout the day, I want to kind of circle back. Trade wins talk. Where are we at with particular players? What's the latest? We're getting close. The Olympic freeze is next week. So we'll circle back and see kind of where things are at ahead of the game against the Oilers. I wanted to finish by talking about the special teams numbers. If you look at since Quinn Hughes came into the fold, the Minnesota Wild's power play is at 29.2%. And amongst power plays in the league, that is fifth in that span. And we saw a good indication of what the Wild want, what is successful in the game against the Flames. The Wilds, all the way through till the later stages in the third period, they did not receive any calls, no power plays throughout the game until they finally got a couple in the final few minutes against the Flames. So they get the first because Jared Spurgeon gets popped. And so you go on the power play, and then Vladimir Tarasenko gets hauled down from behind. You get a 5-on-3. So at that point, you're like, okay, this is a must score, right? Well, the Wild didn't score on the first opportunity, but I want to break that down in some depth here. This is one of those perfect examples of doing what you need to do and just not getting rewarded from the results. I thought the 5-on-3 that the Wild had against the Flames was great because of a few key elements. Number one, puck movement. The Wild were moving the puck side to side. Think about if you're sitting in a canoe and you're trying to tip it over. You're rocking side to side. You're trying to get the goalie moving, trying to get him off of his spot. If you just set up camp in different spots in the zone and don't move, guess what? You are much easier to defend. So the puck movement was great. And the Wilds not only were moving the puck effectively on that 5-on-3, but they were attacking from both sides. If you load up and try to pepper a goalie from one side of the zone while avoiding the other, guess what? You're helping the goalie out. You are giving them a tell as to what's coming. So you're allowing them to kind of cheat and get in position to make the saves. So, and this has been a staple of the power play for the Wild, not only this year, but in previous seasons. I would say the utilization of both face-off circles and the circle-to-circle pass right through the crease. If you close your eyes, you can visualize it right now. That cross circle pass to set up, for instance, Matt Boldy, a one-timer, or Kirill Kaprizov, a one-timer. Well, the Wild got to that. They got a couple of one-timers off, but they just were not able to get a goal on the 5-on-3. So then they had the 5-on-4. And what did the Wild do in the 5-on-4 that allowed them to get the goal? Well, number one, they were able to keep the puck in the zone. It's a trickle-down effect when you're on the power play. It is a trickle-down effect in every small little detail when stacked together. That's how you create the goals. Keeping the puck in the zone and moving the puck lead to more shots on goal, which leads to more opportunities to score when you're on the man advantage. And the Wild had numerous instances in that 5-on-4 where they kept the puck in the zone, they kept moving it around, and the quick, absolute split-second reaction to Kirill Kaprizov. He was on the right side of the zone. He gets the feed from Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes at the top of the zone. So he goes to the right, and Kirill sees Matt Boldy between the dots. And Kirill's thought, Kirill knows exactly what Matt Boldy's trying to do on that play. Matt Boldy was kind of trying to put himself in position to have the back end of the back end of the crease open. Because the goalie is set up, turned to take Kaprizov's shot, as you should. So the goalie has set himself up to take on Kirill Kaprizov's shot, but by turning out of the crease, you've left the back door open. And so Kirill's pass goes, like, he fakes the shot and he gets it to Boldy, and all Boldy has to do is just kind of chip it in for the power play goal. And so it's movement, it is keeping the puck in the zone, but it's also sleight of hand. There is sleight of hand in all good power plays. And Boldy being able to just, and goalies, they try to block it out because they face pressure every game. So you get those guys that are in front of the net, but Boldy kind of pulls away a little bit so that the Flames aren't actively trying to shield him from setting up camp up front. So it's all these little, it's chess match, and it's sleight of hand, and it's just trying to do enough to draw the attention away from where it's supposed to be. It's a magic trick. But while you have the audience looking right here, the trick comes in the other hand. So I thought that was just a great execution on the Minnesota Wild on that power play. And this unit, when they are operating at peak effectiveness, it's going to be some combination of moving players around the zone, but your spine, your skeleton of that power play is going to be those three players: Kirill Kaprizov, Quinn Hughes, and Matt Boldy. And so it's almost like a lightning strike. When those three get the puck, whatever happens next is going to happen very quickly. And that speaks to what Quinn Hughes has brought to the table since the Wild acquired him back in December, is the ability to make those quick, instant types of decisions that have led to goals. So I watched that sequence pretty carefully, and it came at a point in the game in which the Wild were leading 2-1. Obviously, that was a critical power play late in that game. And yes, they scored against the Calgary Flames, but the playoffs are going to be no different. It's going to be tight games, and you're going to have to execute. And don't be surprised if we see some combination of Hughes, Kaprizov, Boldy try to do something similar to that once the playoffs get going. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We have you covered all the way through the Olympic break and beyond with new episodes all week long right here on Locked On Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.